Step 1. The pause that shouldn't exist. The conference room is made of glass. You can see everyone. Everyone can see you. 32 people sit inside a room designed to project transparency. Clean lines, frosted panels, fluorescent light that never softens. The projector hums. The deputy director's voice fills the space with the confident monotony of someone who has given this presentation 100 times and expects nothing to surprise him. Slide 7. Slide 8. Then nothing. The screen holds on slide 9 for exactly 3 seconds longer than it should. Not long enough for most people to notice. Long enough for you. You notice because you're an analyst. Noticing is your entire job. You notice budget discrepancies in the third decimal place. You notice when a field code doesn't match its reference dataset. You notice when a man who has spoken for 40 minutes without hesitation suddenly hesitates. His eyes move left. Just once. Nobody in the room reacts. The presentation resumes. The slide advances. The conversation continues as though nothing skipped, as though the architecture of the briefing is perfectly intact. But something skipped. You can feel it the way you feel a missing stair in the dark, that split second where your body expects solid ground and finds air instead. Your stomach drops before your brain catches up. The coffee in your hand is still warm. The room smells of dry erase marker and recycled air. Somewhere behind you, a chair scrapes the floor. Normal sounds. Normal room. Except for the silence inside slide 9. After the meeting, you walk back to your workstation. Open the session log. Government systems timestamp everything. Every click, every advance, every pause. It's a bureaucratic reflex, the digital equivalent of noting who entered a room and when. You find the log. Slide 9 existed. It was in the original deck. The timestamp shows it loaded. It was removed from the presentation at 6:47 this morning, 43 minutes before the briefing began. You stare at the screen. Nobody in that room thought it was a mistake. If you're finding this unsettling already, you're exactly where this story needs you. Hit that subscribe button, because what comes next is where it gets real. Step 2. The system you trusted. You didn't stumble into this building. You earned your way in through 4 years of economics, 2 years of public policy, and a background check so thorough that investigators spoke to your 4th grade teacher. You remember the pride you felt the morning you received your clearance confirmation, the way your hands were steady even though everything inside you was shaking. This job meant something. It still means something. You believe in systems. Not blindly. You understand that institutions are imperfect, that bureaucracies accumulate inefficiencies the way old houses accumulate dust. But you believe in the underlying purpose. You believe that data, properly analyzed, properly applied, protects people. You believe that the 17 analysts sitting in this building are doing work that matters even when nobody outside these walls knows it's being done. That belief is the foundation everything else sits on. And the system reinforces it, constantly, quietly, the way a building reinforces gravity, not through force, but through design. Every morning you badge in through a security reader that logs your entry time to the second. Every report you generate carries your employee number. Every database you access leaves a trail. The system sees you. The system trusts you enough to see you. And you trust the system back. This is what you've been trained to do, not through explicit instruction, but through repetition. Trust the data over your instinct. Trust the protocol over your read of the room. Trust the chain of command over your individual interpretation. You are one node in a network designed to produce outputs larger than any single analyst can produce alone. You are good at being a node. You are excellent at your job. Today, for days after the briefing with the missing slide, you badge into the building at 7:52 a.m. The reader beeps. Green light. You pull the door. And just before it closes behind you, you feel it. Someone watching. You turn. The security desk is 15 feet away. The officer there has already looked back down at his screen. But there is a lag in his eyes, not where they are now, but where they were. They were on you. Not in the casual way that security personnel track movement. In the specific way of someone who was told to look. The moment you question the system starts questioning you. Step 3. The file that wasn't hidden. The file has a bureaucratic name. Urban Stability Metrics, Quarterly Assessment, Infrastructure and Response Allocation, Districts 4 to 11. You open it because it's in your assigned queue. You open it the same way you open everything, methodically, from the top, scanning column headers before you engage with values. It's how you were trained. Context before data. The first 3 tabs are unremarkable. Population density breakdowns. Emergency response benchmarks. Maintenance cycle projections for water and transit infrastructure. Numbers you've seen variations of 100 times. You are halfway through tab 4 before something shifts. The column is labeled IDT. No full-form title, just the abbreviation. You scroll to the data dictionary at the bottom of the sheet, the legend that defines every coded variable in the dataset. IDT, Intervention Delay Threshold. You read it again. The projected window, in hours, within which delayed emergency response produces statistically minimal public visibility while maintaining acceptable outcome variance. You sit with that sentence for longer than it takes to read. Acceptable outcome variance. The phrase does not mean what plain language would suggest. You know how to translate government measurement speak. It's part of what you do. You translate it now, slowly, the way you might defuse something you're not sure is armed. Acceptable outcome variance means that some outcomes, some people, some neighborhoods, some crises, are within the tolerable range of a delayed response. The system has calculated how long it can wait before the damage becomes visible enough to matter publicly. Your hands don't shake. That's the strange part. You feel a cold precision settle over you. The clinical calm that happens when your brain is processing something too large for emotion to reach first. You scroll through districts 4 through 11. Each one has an IDT value. District 7, a dense residential zone you've seen in infrastructure reports before, has the highest threshold. 14.3 hours. You check when this file was last modified. 3 days ago. Then you check something else, something the system lets you see because of your access level. You pull the access log for this specific file. Someone else opened it. Yesterday morning. 6:14 a.m. 2 hours before the workday began. The employee ID is redacted, a block of asterisks where a number should be. You have never seen a redacted employee ID inside an internal access log. That feature doesn't officially exist. The file wasn't hidden, but it was watched. And now there's a column in a government dataset that was never meant to be read without context. And you've just read it without any. Step 4. Everyone already knows. The meeting is called for Thursday at 2 p.m. Subject line, Q3 Resource Allocation Review, District Infrastructure Portfolio. Routine. You've attended 6 versions of this exact meeting in the past year. You sit in your usual seat, 3rd row, left side, close enough to see the presenter's slides without straining. There are 11 people in the room. You know most of them by title if not by name. 2 senior analysts. A budget coordinator. 3 department heads. A woman you don't recognize, early 40s, dark blazer. A posture so controlled it reads almost like stillness. She sits at the far end of the table with a yellow legal pad and a pen she never uses. The meeting begins. And the meeting is normal. Terrifyingly normal. Slides advance. Numbers are discussed. Response allocation timelines are reviewed. Someone asks about a contractor delay in District 9. Someone else answers. The budget coordinator nods. Nobody mentions IDT. Nobody mentions the intervention delay threshold that is embedded in a dataset they have all, by virtue of being in this room, certainly seen. And that's when silence becomes the loudest thing in the room. You watch faces. This is what you do. You read the data in front of you. And right now the data is 11 people who are not reacting to information that should produce a reaction. No discomfort. No avoidance. No careful neutrality of someone choosing not to engage. Nothing. Because there is nothing to engage. Because this information is not new to them. One of the department heads, gray jacket, silver tie, a man who has worked in this building for 16 years, catches your eye for exactly half a second and then looks back at his notes. That's when the woman at the end of the table speaks for the first time. Some systems, she says, not to anyone in particular, her voice the texture of something measured, require controlled pressure to function within their intended parameters. The room receives this statement without surprise. No one writes it down. No one questions it. The meeting moves on as though she said something procedural, a footnote, a clarification, a sentence barely worth noting. You write it down. You feel the isolation arrive not as fear, but as geometry. The room rearranges itself around you. 11 people on one side of something, and you on the other, except you are still sitting in the same chair. You are not discovering something hidden. You are discovering something accepted. On your way out, you pass your colleague Marcus. He's 3 desks from yours. 2 years your senior. He looks at his phone as you approach. He keeps looking at it as you pass. He does not look up. This story is based on the real psychological architecture of government whistleblowing. If this is making you think, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you haven't already, subscribing takes 2 seconds, and it means more than you know. Step 5. Patterns you can't unsee. You go home. You sit at your kitchen table with a glass of water you don't drink and a phone screen. You keep refreshing as though the news cycle will explain something the dataset already told you. And then you start looking. It takes you 4 hours. Not because the information is hidden. It's not. It's in public records, local news archives, city council meeting minutes, emergency response audits submitted to oversight committees and subsequently filed and forgotten. The information exists. It's just scattered. It's just disaggregated. It's just not supposed to be assembled by someone who has also seen the dataset that predicts it. District 7, 2019. A water main rupture. Response time, 16.2 hours. Public record notes it as a staffing coordination delay. District 7, 2021. A structural fire in a residential block. Response escalation to full capacity, 13.8 hours. Public record notes equipment routing complications. District 7, IDT value in the current dataset, 14.3 hours. Your hand is flat on the table. Not pressing, just resting, as though it needs something solid. You cross-reference districts 4, 5, 8, and 9. Every district with an elevated IDT value has a corresponding pattern in the historical response record. Not perfectly, not surgically, but consistently. Consistently enough that the word coincidence stops being available to you. The worst part is not the pattern. The worst part is that the pattern is clean, organized. It doesn't look like negligence. Negligence is irregular. Negligence has noise. This has none. This has the quiet, smooth signature of something managed. You open your laptop and pull up the budget justification documents for the past 6 fiscal years. Infrastructure response allocation, district by district. And there it is, in the subtext of every budget cycle. The argument for maintaining leaner response capacity in lower-income residential zones because historical incident data shows lower utilization rates. The utilization rates are lower because the response is slower. The response is slower because the budget justifies it. The budget is justified by the response record. The circle is complete. The circle is elegant. The circle has been running for years. You close the laptop. The kitchen is quiet. The refrigerator hums. Outside, a car passes. The worst injustice isn't loud. It's normalized. You think about the people in District 7 who called emergency services and waited 14 hours and were told it was a routing complication. You think about the ones who didn't wait 14 hours because 14 hours was too long. And then you notice something that shouldn't exist. Consistency. A past crisis, 2017, before your time in this role, aligns exactly with a prediction model embedded in the dataset's earliest archived version. This system didn't develop these patterns. It inherited them. Step 6. The auditor who knows more. Her name is Rhea Calder. You find this out on Monday morning when she is standing at your desk. Not waiting. Standing. There is a difference. Waiting implies uncertainty about the outcome. She has none. She holds a manila folder against her chest the way a person holds something they've already decided they're not going to open in front of you. You're the analyst who pulled the district infrastructure portfolio, she says. It is not a question. You confirm it. You weren't supposed to open that yet. You look at her directly. It was in my assigned queue. I know. She sets the folder on the edge of your desk, not handing it to you, just placing it. That was an error in the queue assignment. The file was flagged for Tier 2 access review before general analyst distribution. I have Tier 2 clearance. You have Tier 2 clearance for datasets in your active project portfolio. The infrastructure file belongs to a separate portfolio track. She says this without aggression, without apology, with the exact measured delivery of someone reciting a boundary they've recited before. You understand, in this moment, that she is not here to reprimand you. She is here to map how much you've understood. She is good at this. Too good for someone whose title, as far as you can determine, is Senior Internal Auditor. How many tiers are there, you ask? She looks at you for a moment, a look that is almost, something other than professional. More than you've seen, she says. She picks up the folder. She begins to leave. Then, without turning around, the access log for the file shows you spent 22 minutes on tab 4. You did not tell her which tab you were reading. You did not tell her how long. She knows your access history without checking anything in front of you. That means she checked it before she came. That means this conversation was prepared. Which means she knows exactly what you found. Which means there are people inside this building who have seen everything you've seen, and seen further. The breadcrumb resolves and opens a larger door in the same motion. There are things you still haven't seen. And somewhere above your clearance level, someone has decided exactly when you're allowed to see them. Step 7. The truth about the system. You don't sleep well that week. Not because you're afraid. Not yet. Not exactly. Because you can't stop the analysis. Your brain is doing what it was trained to do. Find the pattern, follow the pattern, name what the pattern describes. And the pattern describes this. The instability is not a failure of the system. The instability is a feature of the system. You lay it out in a document you keep only in your head, because you understand now that nothing you write on a government device is private, and nothing you write at home is necessarily private either. You lay it out the way you would lay out a data argument: premise, evidence, conclusion. Premise: underfunded emergency response in high-density, low-income districts produces a statistically predictable level of recurring crisis. Evidence: 6 years of budget cycles. The IDT framework. The historical response record. The clean, smooth consistency of a pattern with no noise. Conclusion: recurring crisis justifies ongoing emergency budget allocations. Emergency allocations bypass the scrutiny that standard appropriations attract. Bypass scrutiny, and you have discretionary spending with limited oversight. Discretionary spending, over 6 fiscal years, totals a number you don't say out loud, even in your own head. Power doesn't always destroy. Sometimes it delays help. There is a classified internal report. You find a reference to it in a footnote of a Public Oversight Committee document titled Multi-District Infrastructure Response Efficacy Assessment, 2018. The public footnote describes it as confirming response time improvements across all monitored districts. You pull the actual report through your Tier 2 access. It says the opposite. Response times in districts with elevated IDT values worsened over the review period. The public summary, submitted to an oversight committee, contradicts the classified finding it claims to be drawn from. Someone wrote 2 versions of the same report. One for oversight, one for the file. And the real question arrives. Not, what is happening? You know what is happening. Not, who is doing this? You know it isn't one person. The real question is, what are you going to do with what you know? Because you are one analyst, with Tier 2 access. And somewhere above you, there are tiers you haven't counted yet. Step 8. The choice that changes everything. You could copy the files. You sit in your car in the parking garage and think about this with the engine off and your badge in your hand. You could copy the files the way people in films copy files. Put them on a drive, walk out, find a journalist, find a congressional staffer, find someone whose job is to receive exactly this kind of thing and make it impossible to ignore. You think about what happens after that. Not to you. To District 7. You think about what truth becomes once it's released into a system that hasn't decided yet whether it wants to metabolize it or reject it. You think about the news cycle, the counter-narrative, the classified portions that will be challenged and the public portions that will be spun. You think about the people in District 7 whose crisis becomes a political argument, whose suffering becomes a headline, whose 14-hour wait becomes a statistic in a partisan briefing. And then you think about what Rhea Calder said. She appears at your passenger window. You don't know how she knew you were here. You stopped asking how she knows things. She sits down. She doesn't explain herself. You're thinking about leaking it, she says. I'm thinking about whether leaking it helps anyone. She looks straight ahead. You don't control what truth becomes once it's released. Silence. So what do I do? She doesn't answer immediately. When she does, she says, you're an analyst. You have access. And access is not just a way to read a system. She gets out of the car. She doesn't say anything else. You sit for another 3 minutes. The garage is concrete and cold and very quiet. And then you make a decision that no one will ever know you made. You don't copy the files. You do something else. Step 9, quiet power. It begins with a flag. A single data flag in a resource routing table, a priority weight adjustment in the response allocation model for District 7. It is a small change. The kind of change that looks like a calibration correction. The kind of change an analyst at your level is authorized to make when the underlying data warrants it. The underlying data warrants it. You document everything. Every adjustment has a legitimate technical justification drawn from publicly accessible incident data. Every flag is defensible on its own terms. You are not introducing fiction into the system. You are reweighting variables the system was always designed to let analysts reweight. You are simply doing so with the full weight of what you know. 3 weeks later, emergency response time in District 7 drops by 2 hours. The system processes the change without resistance. It is too small to trigger a review, too granular for anyone above your level to notice unless they're looking for it specifically. And they are not looking for it specifically. They are looking for leaks, for copied files, for journalists with documents. They are not looking for an analyst quietly adjusting priority weights in a routing table at 7 a.m. You move to District 5, then District 9. Each change is small. Each change is documented. Each change is defensible. You are not breaking the system. You are using the system with the full understanding of what the system is, something that was built by people, calibrated by people, and capable of being recalibrated by people who understand what's wrong. Not all revolutions are loud. 6 months in, you look at the response data for districts 4 through 11. The improvement is real, modest, consistent. The kind of change that doesn't make headlines because it looks like normal variance. District 7's average response time is now 9.1 hours, down from 14.3. You don't tell anyone. There is no one to tell. And then one day you sit down at your workstation, pull up the routing model, and find something that makes the air leave your lungs. The system has updated the IDT values. District 7's threshold has been adjusted downward to match your corrections. The system has started adapting to your changes. It has absorbed them, normalized them. It doesn't know why they're better. It only knows that the data improved. And so it moved the baseline. You have changed what the system thinks is normal. We're almost at the end. And if this story has made you feel something you can't quite name yet, then you understand exactly why this kind of work never makes the front page. Share this with someone who thinks systems are neutral. And if you're not subscribed yet, this is the channel where stories like this live. Step 10. The ending nobody sees. A year passes. Nothing dramatic happens. No investigation. No summons. No envelope slid under your door. You badge in every morning. You do your work. You eat lunch at your desk. You leave at 6. The city outside this building continues to be the city outside this building. But District 7 had 3 fewer critical response failures in the past 12 months than in any of the 6 years prior. Nobody announces this. Nobody runs the comparison. The data is in the system, and the system doesn't narrate itself. Rhea Calder appears one last time. Not at your desk. In the elevator. 7:30 in the morning. The building mostly empty. The hum of fluorescent light overhead like a held note. She looks at you the way you have come to understand. She looks at everything with the specific attention of someone who has already completed the analysis and arrived at the conclusion and is now simply confirming it. District 7, she says. Just that. You don't answer. You don't need to. The elevator opens. She walks out. She doesn't look back. And that is all the acknowledgement you will ever receive. That is the full extent of the credit, the recognition, the record. 2 words in an empty elevator at 7:30 in the morning from a woman whose job title does not explain what she actually does. You stand in the elevator alone for a moment before the doors try to close again. This is the end of the story. Not the ending anyone would write for it. No press conference, no vindication, no public reckoning. Just a routing table with adjusted weights and a response time that dropped by 5 hours in a district where 5 hours is the difference between a fire that destroys 1 unit and a fire that destroys 4. You are an analyst in a glass building in a city full of systems. You have your clearance. You have your access. You have the thing you found and the choice you made and the quiet, unremarkable proof that it worked. You gave up the credit. You gave up the rage. You gave up the version of this story where you are the hero. What you kept is harder to name and harder to lose. The most dangerous truth isn't the one you expose. It's the one you learn to carry. If this story stayed with you, you already know what to do. Like, share, and subscribe. The next story is already being written, and it will find you if you're here.